There is a darkness that lurks beneath the surface of the world we know, a mind so twisted by resentment, so consumed by hatred, that it festers in silence until it erupts into violence. Elliot Rodger was not just another lonely young man. He was a ticking time bomb, his every thought spiraling toward one horrific conclusion. On May 23, 2014, that darkness was unleashed. The streets of Isla Vista, California, became a hunting ground as Rodger set out to exact his revenge on a world that in his mind had wronged him. But to understand that night, we must first understand the deeply disturbed mind behind the massacre. Elliot Oliver Robertson. Rodger was born on July 24, 1991 in London, England. His father, Peter Rodger, was a filmmaker who worked on the Hunger Games, and his mother, Li Xin, was a research assistant. From an outsider's perspective, he lived a charmed life. Elite schools, Hollywood parties, wealth, but beneath the surface, Rodger saw only isolation. He was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, PDD-NOS, a condition on the autism spectrum, and struggled to connect with those around him. Socially awkward and introverted, he spent much of his childhood watching others form friendships and relationships while he remained an outcast. It wasn't long before that feeling of exclusion turned to something more sinister. Rodger became obsessed with wealth, power, and, above all, women. He was convinced that once he attained status, women would finally throw themselves at him. He unsuccessfully tried earning money in the stock market and lottery, believing it would make him irresistible. But reality never matched his expectations, and every failure deepened his rage. But it wasn't just any woman he desired. Rodger became fixated on blonde women, specifically blonde, white, conventionally attractive women whom he saw as the pinnacle of desirability. To him, they represented everything he had been denied. Every time he saw a blonde woman with a man, he seethed. How dare she give herself to someone else? How dare she not choose him? He believed he was superior to other men, especially those he saw as beneath him, minorities, thugs, or men he deemed unattractive. Yet these men had what he wanted. They had girlfriends. They had sex. And Rodger, despite his self-perceived superiority, was still alone. Rodger's hatred was not contained in his private thoughts. As his anger festered, he began lashing out at the world around him. He once threw a drink on a couple simply because he couldn't stand to see them together. He saw their happiness as an insult, their affection as an attack. Another time, he attempted to shove a group of women off a ledge at a college party after being rejected, only to be beaten and humiliated by other men. This humiliation burned inside him like a disease. Each confrontation, each rejection, and each moment he spent in the presence of couples intensified his fantasies of revenge. His mind became a prison, and he saw only one way out: retribution. Rodger began writing his now infamous manifesto, My Twisted World, a 137-page descent into madness. In it, he detailed his grievances against society, his hatred of women, and his plan to make the world suffer for what it had done to him. He meticulously planned what he called his day of retribution. He would strike at those who had rejected him. He would bathe in their blood. In the weeks leading up to the attack, he legally purchased 3 handguns and stockpiled ammunition. His parents grew concerned, his increasingly erratic behavior, his violent online rants, but it was too late. The storm had already formed. On the evening of May 23, 2014, Elliot Rodger set his nightmare into motion. First, he butchered his 3 roommates in his apartment, Wei Han Wang, Chung Wen Hong, and George Chen, stabbing them over and over in a frenzied attack. Blood pooled on the floors. The walls bore silent witness to his first kills. And then, as if he had simply finished a mundane task, Rodger walked out the door, climbed into his BMW, and drove to Starbucks. He ordered a vanilla latte, sitting there in eerie calm, sipping his drink while his roommates' lifeless bodies remained in the apartment. A final moment of normalcy before he unleashed hell. Following his coffee break, Elliot drove to the Alpha Phi sorority house, his ultimate target. Alpha Phi was everything he despised: beautiful women, social power, the unattainable ideal that haunted him. He knocked on the door, ready to slaughter everyone inside, but no one answered. Enraged, he turned his gun on 3 women standing outside. Veronica Weiss, 19, and Catherine Cooper, 22, were killed instantly. Another woman was injured but survived, but he wasn't done. Rodger sped through the streets of Isla Vista in his black BMW, hunting like a predator. He fired at pedestrians, cyclists, and anyone in his path. At a deli, he shot and killed 20-year-old Christopher Michaels Martinez. He continued his rampage, wounding 14 others, the night filled with screams, gunfire, and sirens. Finally, as police closed in, Rodger crashed his car. Trapped, knowing his reign of terror was ending, he put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. The day of retribution was over. Rodger's twisted ideology did not die with him. His manifesto and YouTube videos became rallying cries for an underground community of like-minded men, the incels, mentasitu involuntary celibates. To them he was a martyr, proof of their suffering, a symbol of revenge against a world they believed had abandoned them. In the years that followed, copycat killers invoked his name before committing their own acts of terror. His ideology seeped into dark corners of the internet, a toxic echo of his unfulfilled desires. But in the end, the only thing Elliot Rodger left behind was death. 6 innocent lives stolen, 14 others wounded, families torn apart. And for what? Because one young man, poisoned by entitlement, rage, and obsession, believed he was owed the world, and when the world refused, he sought to destroy it. Elliot Rodger's story is not just one of violence. It is a warning, a reminder that monsters are not born overnight. They fester in silence, their hatred growing until one day, when the world least expects it, they emerge from the shadows, and by then, it's already too late.